So usually, like when you get a medical diagnosis, you kind of expect this engineering level precision,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Like it's a math problem or something.
Exactly. You break your arm, the X-ray shows a jagged white line, and the doctor just points at the screen and says, yep, there it is. It's broken.
It's highly binary. I mean, it's comforting because it's so clear and visible. The problem is identified, they initiate a protocol, and the bone heals.
Yeah, but then you step into the world of human metabolism, right? Body composition, weight loss, and suddenly that X-ray machine is completely shattered. We're looking at a landscape that is just incredibly murky.
Oh, absolutely. It's the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters, really.
It really is. It's overflowing with contradictory advice, deep-seated shame, and frankly, a billion-dollar marketing machine that is literally designed to keep you confused.
Yeah, it's a space where the noise-to-signal ratio is just completely inverted. And because of that, almost everyone walking around today has this story of deep personal frustration when it comes to trying to change their body.
Which is exactly what we are tackling today on this deep dive. We have an incredible stack of source material to get through for you. We're specifically pulling from a really comprehensive guide, zeroing in on Chapter 16.
And the original title of that chapter perfectly captures the vibe of what we're going to try and achieve today.
Yeah, it's Capítulo 16, Perder peso sin perder la cabeza, which translates to basically losing weight without losing your mind.
Which is just a very fitting title, honestly, considering how much profound psychological distress the pursuit of weight loss inflicts on the average person. I mean, we treat our bodies like enemies to be conquered, rather than these complex biological systems that just need to be understood.
So true. So here is our mission for you, the listener, today. We are going to decode the actual unforgiving biology of weight loss.
Right. We're going to completely dismantle those toxic myths of diet culture that have, let's be real, probably been living rent-free in your head for decades.
Yep. And we're going to give you the actual scientific tools to change your body composition without ever falling for a fad diet again.
Because it's really about replacing dogma with physiological reality.
Yeah.
Once you understand the actual mechanisms like the why and the how, you just become immune to the marketing.
Yes. And to start this off, we have to talk about a scenario from the text that is so vivid and, frankly, so highly relatable, it might actually hurt a little to hear. Let's call it the January 1st trap.
Oh, the classic January 1st trap.
Yeah. Picture this. It's a Monday, or maybe it's literally January 1st. You look in the mirror, maybe you try on a pair of jeans that just don't fit anymore, and you make a hard decision. You say to yourself, this time it's serious, no more messing around.
The resolve in that exact moment is absolute. It feels so powerful.
Absolute steel. You go all in.
Right.
And because society has taught you that weight loss is fundamentally about suffering, the restriction you impose on yourself is just radical.
They're very radical.
You slash your intake down to maybe 1,000 or 1,200 calories a day. You double your exercise routine. You institute this hard, inflexible rule like absolutely no carbohydrates after 6:00 p.m. No sugar, no alcohol, basically no joy.
Which is, biologically speaking, a catastrophic system shock to the organism.
Right, but you don't know that yet. Because at first, you get this massive, intoxicating false victory. I mean, the source text walks through this perfectly. Week 1, you step on the scale, boom, 3 kilos gone.
Yep.
Week 2, another 2 kilos down. Your motivation is sky high. You're already buying new clothes in your mind. You're thinking, I finally cracked the code. All I needed was discipline. This time is actually different.
Well, the feedback loop in those first 14 days is immediate and highly rewarding. The brain releases dopamine because it perceives success.
Right.
And that totally masks the underlying physiological damage that it's beginning to compound.
But then the inevitable crash arrives. By week 4, you step on the scale after eating nothing but grilled chicken and spinach for a month, and you've only lost 300 grams.
It slows way down.
Week 5, nothing. The scale does not move a single millimeter. And worse, the exhaustion sets in. The hunger, which you could kind of heroically ignore in those first 2 weeks, it stops being a minor annoyance.
It becomes a physical mandate.
Exactly. It becomes this crushing, constant physical pressure. Every single workout feels like you're moving through waist-deep, wet cement.
Because you essentially are. The body has actively altered your physical state to make movement feel impossible.
And then one night, after a really stressful day at work, or maybe you're at a birthday party, the dam breaks. You have a slice of cake, which leads to 3 slices. You have a massive binge.
Which is completely natural under those conditions.
Right. And then maybe another one the next day because you feel like, well, you ruined everything anyway. The weight rushes back on. And here's the worst part, I think, the part that genuinely damages us. It brings back those familiar, devastating
The
feelings.
shame cycle.
Yes. You look in the mirror again and say, I just have no willpower. Or you think, my genetics are just bad, my metabolism is completely broken, I'm just genetically destined to be this weight.
And that right there is the absolute tragedy of the entire diet industry cycle. Because I need to reframe this entire premise right now for you.
Okay, let's unpack this.
It is not a lack of willpower. It has never been a lack of willpower. It is profoundly misunderstood biology. You did not fail the diet. The physiological parameters of the diet were literally designed to fail you.
Okay, so if it's not willpower, right, if it's not some moral failing or a lack of mental toughness on my part, what is actually happening inside the human body when we do that, when we drop to 1,200 calories overnight?
Well, to understand why the January 1st diet failed, we really have to look at how the human body interprets sudden, massive calorie deficits. You have to remember, our genetics have not updated for the modern world.
They're still stuck in the Stone Age.
Exactly. When you suddenly drop your intake to 1,200 calories, which might be, 1,000 calories below your maintenance level,
Yeah.
your body doesn't know you're trying to look good for a summer vacation.
Right. The body doesn't know about beach season or weddings.
No, it doesn't read fashion magazines. It only perceives one singular, terrifying data point, a catastrophic drop in available energy in your environment. And in response, the brain deploys a million-year-old evolutionary defense protocol. This protocol is explicitly designed to keep you alive during a severe famine.
So it thinks winter has come, all the crops have died, and we are literally starving.
Precisely. You attack the body aggressively with restriction, and it responded with all of its ancient defense systems. And the text breaks down exactly what this starvation protocol entails. Let's look at the endocrinology first, starting with the hormone ghrelin.
Ghrelin, that's the hunger hormone, right?
Yes, ghrelin is an enterohormone, meaning it's produced primarily in the gastrointestinal tract, specifically the stomach lining.
Okay.
When your stomach is empty, it secretes ghrelin, which travels through the bloodstream, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and binds to receptors in the hypothalamus.
So it goes straight to the brain.
Straight to the brain. And that binding is what creates the actual physical sensation of gnawing hunger. When you enact a severe restriction, your body dramatically upregulates ghrelin production. Your ghrelin levels just spike wildly.
So the stomach is basically screaming at the brain to find food.
Screaming. But what is truly terrifying about the research highlighted in the source text is how long that scream lasts.
What do you mean?
Well, in cases of extreme rapid weight loss, like dropping massive amounts of weight on a crash diet, those ghrelin levels don't just gently go back to normal once you start eating a maintenance diet again.
Wait, what? If I start eating normally, shouldn't my stomach stop producing the starvation hormone?
You would think so, but no. Studies show that these elevated ghrelin levels can remain significantly high for months or even years after the extreme diet ends.
Years.
Yes, years. The body is essentially holding a biological grudge. It constantly begs you for food to recover the lost weight because it believes you narrowly escaped starving to death. And it wants an energy buffer in case the famine returns.
That is mind-blowing. So a year later, I'm off the diet, I've regained the weight, but my stomach is still pumping out hunger hormones as if I'm starving in the wilderness. No wonder people feel like they have no willpower. You're fighting a chemical cocktail designed to make you eat.
Exactly. It is literal chemical warfare against your own brain. And while ghrelin is screaming at you to eat, your primary satiety hormone leptin is simultaneously plummeting.
Okay, what does leptin do?
Leptin works in the exact opposite way. It is produced by your adipose tissue, your fat cells. We used to think fat was just, inert storage like a biological backpack, but it's actually an active endocrine organ.
So my fat cells are actively releasing hormones into my blood.
Yes. The more fat you have, the more leptin you produce. Leptin is the signal to your hypothalamus that says we are well fed, our energy reserves are high, we are safe.
Got it.
But when leptin plummets drastically because you're crash dieting and rapidly losing mass, the brain receives a massive red alert. The safety signal disappears. So the brain cranks your appetite to maximum, and simultaneously it starts slowing down your baseline energy expenditure to conserve whatever fuel you have left.
It's pulling the emergency brake on the whole system.
It is the ultimate emergency brake, which leads to the third part of the starvation protocol, which is metabolic adaptation.
Right, this is a big one. People always say, like, I crash dieted and my metabolism slowed down. But is that an actual measurable physical process or just kind of an excuse?
It is very real, highly measurable, and intently documented. The body's internal thermostat physically lowers. Your basal metabolic rate, the calories you burn, just keeping your organs alive, pumping blood, inflating your lungs. It's not a fixed number. It's highly adaptable.
So it actually drops.
It does. During a crash diet, the body becomes hyper-efficient. It lowers your core body temperature slightly, your heart rate slows, and it aggressively reduces your spontaneous physical activity.
What do you mean by spontaneous activity?
Things like fidgeting, maintaining a perfectly upright posture, tapping your foot, deciding to take the stairs instead of the elevator. Your brain subconsciously paralyzes your desire to do these things just to save a few hundred calories a day.
Wow. It's literally dimming the lights and turning off the background apps to save the battery.
That's a perfect analogy. But the final, and undoubtedly the most lasting damage of this starvation response, is muscle catabolism.
The body eating its own muscle tissue.
Yes. Without sufficient energy coming in, especially if there is inadequate protein in the diet, and no strength training to signal that the muscle is needed, the body looks for internal energy sources to bridge that massive 1,000-calorie deficit.
But wait, why muscle? If it has all this stored fat, why would it eat the muscle?
Well, it will burn some fat, yes, but fat is an excellent long-term storage mechanism. The body prefers to hold on to it during a famine because muscle is highly expensive tissue.
Expensive how?
It requires a tremendous amount of energy calories just to maintain its existence, even when you are resting. Fat, on the other hand, just sits there. In a famine, getting rid of muscle serves a dual purpose. It provides immediate energy, and it lowers your daily energy requirements by getting rid of the tissue that burns the most calories.
It's an evolutionary masterstroke, but a modern-day nightmare. So let me make sure I'm fully getting the sequence. I do the extreme 1,200-calorie diet. I lose weight quickly, but a significant portion of that weight is my precious calorie-burning muscle. Because I lost muscle, my basal metabolism permanently drops. Then I inevitably crack because my Ghrelin is through the roof and my leptin is non-existent. I binge and I regain the weight. But when I regain the weight, I'm regaining pure fat, not the muscle I lost.
You have just perfectly described the painful reality of weight cycling, or what's more commonly known as the yo-yo effect.
Right.
The person who returns to their original starting weight now has a significantly higher percentage of body fat and less muscle than they did before they ever started the diet.
So they're actually worse off.
Much worse off. They might weigh exactly 85 kilos, just like they did on January 1st, but metabolically speaking, their engine is vastly smaller, their metabolism is measurably lower, meaning the next time they try to diet, it will be even harder because their maintenance calories have dropped.
That is deeply sobering. It really shows how the body is like an overly anxious, terrified accountant.
How do you mean?
Well, think about the corporate world, right? If the regular revenue stream, the calories coming in, suddenly gets slashed by 70%, an anxious accountant doesn't just casually trim the entertainment budget. They go into full-blown panic mode.
Right, they freeze all spending.
Exactly. They lock the vault. They completely stop paying for the structural maintenance on the headquarters building, which is the muscle catabolism. And they start hoarding every single future penny that eventually comes in, which is the fat storage out of pure, unadulterated fear that the company is going to go bankrupt.
Oh, that's spot on. The accountant is trying to save the business from insolvency, just as the hypothalamus is trying to save you from starvation. It's an elegant survival mechanism. And there is a landmark study mentioned in the text that illustrates this accountant's panic with a clarity that shocked the entire scientific community.
Oh, let's talk about the study. I love when we get into the hard data.
It's conducted by researchers at the National Institutes of Health, specifically led by a researcher named Kevin Hall. And it involved studying the participants of the reality television show, The Biggest Loser.
Oh, wow. The show where they take morbidly obese people and have them compete to lose massive amounts of weight on national television.
Exactly. The protocol on that show is the absolute extreme of the January 1st trap. I mean, participants were subjected to brutal caloric restriction, often eating a fraction of their basal metabolic needs, paired with incredibly intense daily exercise, sometimes exercising for hours a day.
Right. And predictably, they lose enormous amounts of weight in a very short time, dozens of kilos. They all look completely different at the finale. But what did the researchers find?
Well, Kevin Hall's team tracked these individuals down and measured their metabolic health 6 years after their season ended, 6 full years later.
What was the damage?
The vast majority had regained almost all of the weight. Some had regained even more than they lost. But the truly shocking finding, the data point that literally rewrote how we understand metabolic adaptation, was their basal metabolic rates.
What happened to them?
6 years later, their metabolisms were profoundly damaged. They were burning hundreds of calories less per day than people of the exact same size and body composition who had never undergone an extreme diet.
Wait, hold on, let me process that. So even after they regained all the fat and their bodies were large again, their internal engines were still running as if they were tiny.
Yes.
They were burning fewer calories than a normal person of their identical size.
Yes. One participant, despite regaining over 100 pounds, was found to be burning 800 fewer calories a day than a man of his exact same size. The body had memorized the trauma of the extreme diet.
800 calories a day.
Yep. Even half a decade later, the accountant was still hoarding, still terrified. The Biggest Loser famine would return.
That is horrifying, because it proves that the diet industry isn't just selling us failure. By pushing extreme rapid weight loss, they're actively making our underlying biology worse. They're setting us up to be fatter in the long run.
Precisely. Which creates a very dangerous vulnerability. Because our bodies react so violently to aggressive restriction, and because traditional crash dieting feels so agonizing, the diet industry thrives on selling us magic alternatives.
There is always a new promise. Always. You open Instagram or TikTok, and there's a new book, a new powdered supplement, a new 30-day challenge that claims you don't have to suffer, you don't have to eat less, you just have to eat differently, you just have to buy their specific protocol.
And because people are desperate to avoid the pain of the starvation response, they buy in. This is why we need a robust defense mechanism. We need a way to filter the physiological truth from the marketing fiction. And the source text provides an incredibly powerful yet simple tool for this.
Let's get into it. What is the ultimate mental filter for fad diets?
It is a simple thought experiment. It's a single question that you must relentlessly ask whenever you are presented with a new diet, a new supplement, or a definitive method for weight loss. The question is, why exactly would this approach physically reduce my total caloric intake?
Notice what we aren't asking here. We aren't asking, does it work? Because as we just saw with The Biggest Loser, anything can work for 12 weeks. Starving yourself works until it ruins your metabolism.
Exactly. And you shouldn't even ask, does it have scientific backing? Because marketers are brilliant at cherry-picking or twisting single, poorly designed studies to support almost any wild claim.
Right.
You must ask for the specific, logical, biological mechanism that forces you, in your actual real-life environment, to consume less energy than you expend.
Okay, so let's play this out. Let's pit the mechanisms against the marketing. What does a valid, honest answer to that question look like?
A valid answer points to a clear, logical behavior change that naturally results in eating fewer calories. For example, if a diet protocol says it worked because it eliminates all ultra-processed foods, that is a highly valid mechanism.
Because they're so easy to overeat.
Exactly. Ultra-processed foods are engineered to be hyper-palatable, they are incredibly calorie-dense, and they lack fiber. Eliminating them from your house naturally reduces your total caloric intake. You simply can't overeat boiled potatoes the way you can overeat potato chips.
Makes total sense. The mechanism is removing foods designed to bypass satiety. What about something massively popular right now, like intermittent fasting?
Intermittent fasting is a great example. If the guru says it works because it reduces your eating window to 8 hours a day, that is a valid mechanism.
Because you're just cutting out time.
Right. By entirely removing the possibility of eating a large breakfast and completely eliminating late-night snacking on the couch, you simply have less time to consume calories. For many people, this naturally leads to a total caloric reduction. Or if a diet says it massively increases your lean protein intake and your vegetable volume to maximize mechanical satiety. Again, a totally logical mechanism. You feel physically stuffed faster, so you stop eating sooner.
Okay, so those are the biological truths. They all boil down to, it makes you eat less. What are the bogus answers? What's the marketing fiction we need to spot?
The bogus answers are almost always built on vague, pseudoscientific buzzwords that sound medical but mean absolutely nothing. If someone tells you a diet works because it reprograms your metabolism,
Bogus.
completely. You cannot reprogram a metabolism like a piece of software. Or if they claim their proprietary powder activates your stubborn fat-burning genes, or alkalizes your organism, or the most famous one, detoxifies your liver.
Oh my God, the detox tease. It's a billion-dollar industry built entirely on selling people flavored laxatives.
Constantly pushed by influencers. But the text makes it emphatically clear, and basic physiology backs this up. These phrases correspond to zero actual human biology. They are pure marketing inventions.
Because your body already detoxes itself.
Exactly. Your liver and your kidneys are the most sophisticated, state-of-the-art detoxification filtration systems on the planet. If they stop detoxifying your body, you don't need a tea, You need an immediate organ transplant.
And the alkalizing thing always gets me. People drinking special alkaline water thinking it's changing their body's pH.
It's physiological nonsense. Your blood pH is strictly and aggressively regulated by your kidneys and lungs, kept between 7.35 and 7.45. If a diet actually changed your blood pH significantly to make it more alkaline, you wouldn't be losing weight. You would be in an intensive care unit suffering from alkalosis.
I have to say, this thought experiment, it is a huge aha moment. It is incredibly empowering for the listener because you don't need a PhD in nutritional biochemistry to debunk every single TikTok trend that pops up on your feed.
Nope, not at all.
You don't have to read the studies they link. You just need to apply this one simple, brutal filter. How does this physically make me eat fewer calories? If they can't answer that with basic kindergarten logic, it's a scam.
Exactly. It completely demystifies the entire industry. The fundamental law of thermodynamics, expending more energy than you consume, does not change. It cannot be hacked. But, as we've learned from the terrifying starvation response, there are intelligent, patient ways to apply that law, and there are destructive, panicked ways that permanently turn your body against you.
So if we strip away the marketing and we accept that a caloric deficit is the one and only true mechanism for weight loss, we have to figure out how to do it correctly. We must calculate a deficit size that avoids triggering the hypothalamus into that biological emergency mode we talked about.
This is where we transition from understanding the theory to applying the mathematics to sustainable loss. We need to find the metabolic sweet spot.
The source text gives us a very specific mathematical range here. What is the scientifically backed sweet spot for a daily caloric deficit?
The scientific consensus, born out of countless metabolic ward studies, consistently points to a daily deficit of 300 to 500 kilocalories below your maintenance level.
300 to 500 calories, not 1,000, not slashing your diet in half, just 300 to 500.
Correct. And this is not just an arbitrary conservative guess. This is the exact mathematical window where the body can comfortably tap into its fat stores to make up the energy difference without activating those evolutionary defense systems with full force.
Let's break down exactly why this specific 300-500 range works so beautifully compared to the extreme 1,200-calorie diets. What happens to the hormones?
Well, let's revisit the endocrine system. With a moderate 300 to 500 calorie deficit, your fat mass decreases slowly. Therefore, your leptin levels, that safety signal, drop very gradually, not off a cliff.
So the brain doesn't freak out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This means your brain's satiety systems stay online. The hypothalamus still feels relatively safe. It registers a slight shortage, not a famine.
And what about the hunger hormone, the one that screams?
Ghrelin will increase slightly. You will experience some hunger that is entirely unavoidable when losing adipose tissue. You kind of have to make peace with feeling slightly empty sometimes. But the Ghrelin response remains entirely manageable. It is a polite whisper asking for a snack, not a primal scream demanding a binge.
And the metabolism. Does the anxious accountant still lock the vault?
Metabolic adaptation will still occur to a small degree. I mean, the body always strives for ultimate efficiency, and as you weigh less, you simply burn fewer calories moving your lighter body around. But the adaptation is incredibly slow and moderate.
And the muscle.
Most importantly, if you keep this deficit moderate, eat enough protein and strength train, muscle catabolism is reduced to almost zero. The accountant sees the slight dip in revenue and calmly trims the fat budget, but continues paying for the building's structural maintenance.
Okay, so a 300 to 500 calorie daily deficit. Let's translate that into the real world. How does that deficit translate into actual weight loss on the bathroom scale per week?
Mathematically, a 300 to 500 calorie daily deficit translates to losing approximately 300 to 500 grams of body tissue per week, roughly a third to half a kilo, or about 1 pound.
See, I can hear the collective groan of disappointment from the listeners right now. 300 to 500 grams a week. After we have been systematically conditioned by decades of magazines and influencers promising lose 5 kilos in 5 days, half a kilo a week sounds agonizingly, painfully slow.
It does sound slow, especially compared to the 3 kilos in the first week illusion that crash diets provide. But remember what the text points out about those initial 3 kilos of a crash diet. You are not losing 3 kilos of dense adipose tissue. You are losing water and depleted glycogen stores.
Explain that mechanism, because people get so addicted to that first week drop. Why do we drop so much weight so fast when we cut calories, especially at carbs?
It comes down to cellular biology. When you eat carbohydrates, your body breaks them down into glucose for immediate energy. Any excess glucose is converted into a substance called glycogen, which is stored in your liver and your muscle tissue for later use.
Okay, glycogen.
Right. But here's the critical physiological fact. For every single gram of glycogen your body stores, it has to store approximately 3 to 4 grams of water along with it to maintain osmotic pressure in the cell.
Ah, so glycogen is essentially a sponge that holds water inside the muscle.
Exactly. So when you crash diet, especially if you cut carbs, your body burns through those glycogen stores very quickly within the first few days. As the glycogen is burned, all that associated water is released and flushed out through your urine.
And then you step on the
You
scale.
step on the scale, and you are 3 kilos lighter. You feel incredibly successful, but you haven't burned fat. You've just wrung out the sponge.
And the second you eat a bowl of pasta, the sponge fills back up and the 3 kilos return instantly.
Precisely. Real dense fat loss is a slow, methodical biological process. Adipose tissue is highly energy dense. It takes time to break down those triglycerides and oxidize them.
So 300 to 500 grams of true fat loss per week is actually an incredible victory.
It is the biological speed limit. And the text provides a very useful, scalable rule of thumb for this to help contextualize the speed based on your specific body size. The target should be losing between 0.5% and 1% of your total body weight per week.
Why use percentages instead of just giving everyone a flat number of pounds or kilos to aim for?
Because weight loss impact is highly relative to your starting mass. A 1.2 kilo per week loss might be a perfectly safe, biologically moderate deficit for someone who currently weighs 120 kilos. Their basal metabolic rate is very high, so they can sustain a larger caloric deficit without triggering the starvation response.
Right, but what if you're smaller?
Exactly. If a person weighing 70 kilos tries to lose 1.2 kilos a week, they are cutting a massive percentage of their total intake. They are in a dangerously aggressive, extreme deficit relative to their size.
That makes perfect sense. The smaller you are, the smaller the total amount of fat you can safely metabolize per week, so your absolute deficit has to shrink.
Yes. A great maximum boundary to keep in your mind is the 4% rule. If you are losing more than 4% of your total body weight in a single month, you are almost certainly going too fast, burning through muscle tissue and risking a severe metabolic slowdown.
Okay, so let's extrapolate the math on that 300 to 500 gram a week target, because right now, someone is thinking, I have 20 kilos to lose. At 400 grams a week, this is going to take forever. Let's look at the long game. Losing 400 grams a week feels like an invisible change on a random Tuesday, but what happens if you extrapolate that over a year?
What's fascinating here is the power of compounding consistency. 400 grams a week, sustained over 52 weeks, is over 20 kilograms of pure fat lost in a single year.
Over 20 kilos, that is a life-changing amount of weight. That's carrying a massive suitcase of fat that you get to set down permanently.
Yes, and here's the crucial part. It's 20 kilos lost while maintaining all your calorie-burning muscle mass without crushing your metabolism, without suffering through crushing hunger, and completely bypassing the yo-yo effect. No binging, no starving, no damaged endocrinology.
It's huge.
It is. Human impatience is, without a doubt, the single biggest barrier to biological success.
We are our own worst enemies.
We want the result in 30 days, so we break the system, we fail, and a year later we are heavier than we started. Rather than accepting the slow, boring math that guarantees a permanent, life-altering result in 365 days.
It's profound when you look at the math that way. Okay, so if the 300 to 500 calorie deficit dictates how much weight you lose, the text shifts gears entirely for the next concept. It tells us that the macronutrients you choose to consume dictate what kind of weight you lose.
This is a vital, non-negotiable distinction. A calorie deficit makes you smaller. But macronutrients determine if you become a smaller, softer, weaker version of yourself or a leaner, stronger, metabolically healthier version.
And here, one macronutrient steps into the absolute spotlight. We've mentioned it a few times, but it needs its own dedicated breakdown: protein. The text refers to it as the absolute star of the show. We need to talk about the metabolic shield.
When you are in a caloric deficit, when the overall energy in the system is low, your body has to make a daily choice to survive. It needs energy to bridge the gap. So does it burn your stored fat or does it strip away your muscle tissue?
Right.
The sheer amount of dietary protein you consume is the primary, overwhelming factor that tips the biological scale toward burning fat and actively protecting muscle.
The text calls protein a triple threat for weight loss. Let's break down the deep science of these three reasons, starting with satiety. We all know protein makes you full, but why?
Gram for gram, protein is overwhelmingly the most satiating macronutrient. When you consume protein, it passes into the stomach and then the intestines. Its presence triggers the massive release of satiety hormones in the gut, specifically peptide YY and GLP-1.
Wait, GLP-1, as in the exact hormone that all those massive new weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy mimic.
Exactly. Those drugs are synthetic GLP-1 receptor agonists. But your body produces its own natural GLP-1 when you eat sufficient protein.
So it's nature's Ozempic.
Essentially, yes. These hormones travel directly to the brain and aggressively shut down the hunger signals. When you're eating fewer calories on a diet, controlling hunger is paramount for adherence. Protein is your biological tool to synthesize your own appetite-suppressing hormones.
Okay, that alone makes it essential. But the second part of the triple threat absolutely blew my mind when I read it, the thermic effect of food, or TAF.
Yes, the sheer energy cost of digestion. This is a massive metabolic advantage that is entirely overlooked by people who just count straight calories.
Break the chemistry of this down for us, because the numbers in the text are wild. A calorie is not just a calorie when it comes to digestion.
No, it's not. Every time you eat, your body has to expend energy just to break down the food, absorb the nutrients, and process them into usable fuel. It's like a tax you pay on the calories you eat. But the tax rate is drastically different depending on the macronutrient.
Give me the breakdown.
For dietary fats, the thermic effect is very low, about 0 to 3%. The body easily absorbs fat. For carbohydrates, it's about 5 to 10%.
Meaning, if I eat 100 calories of carbohydrates, my body has to burn 5 to 10 of those calories just to process the carbs, so I net 90 calories.
Correct. But for protein, the thermic effect is an astonishing 20 to 30%.
That is incredible. Why is the tax so high on protein?
Because protein is structurally complex. Amino acids are held together by strong peptide bonds. Your body has to produce specific enzymes, deploy acid, and spend a massive amount of ATP cellular energy to break those complex peptide bonds apart and synthesize the amino acids into human tissue. It is highly, highly inefficient.
So if I eat 100 calories of pure chicken breast or egg whites, my body burns up to 30 of those calories just running the digestive process. I only net 70 calories.
Exactly, which in the context of weight loss is a massive invisible advantage. You are effectively extracting far fewer net calories from protein than from any other food source while simultaneously feeling fuller.
And the third part of the triple threat is the most crucial for long-term metabolism, muscle preservation.
Right. Remember the anxious accountant trying to cut the maintenance budget? Dietary protein provides the literal, physical amino acid building blocks required to maintain your muscle tissue.
So it forces the accountant to keep paying for the building.
Exactly. By keeping your blood amino acid pool high, you send a clear chemical signal to the body. We have an abundance of resources to keep this expensive muscle tissue alive. Do not catabolize it.
Okay, so we know we absolutely need it, satiety, burning calories to digest it, and saving our muscle. But how much do we actually need? Because the text dives into the hidden numbers, and I'll be honest, they are way higher than anything I was ever taught in a standard nutrition class.
They are significantly higher.
Yeah.
And it's critical to understand why standard advice fails here. Standard nutritional guidelines, like the recommended dietary allowance or the percentages you see on the back of a cereal box, they are designed for general population maintenance.
Just normal people eating normally.
Right. They are the bare minimum required to prevent a protein deficiency in a healthy person who is eating enough calories. They are not designed for someone actively in a caloric deficit trying to preserve highly metabolic muscle mass.
So when you are in a deficit, the rules change. What is the scientifically optimal target range during a fat loss phase?
The clinical evidence consistently points to a much higher, robust range. You need to consume between 1.6 and 2.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight every single day.
Okay, let's do the math on that so people can conceptualize it. Let's take an 80-kilogram person, which is about 176 pounds.
For an 80-kilogram person, hitting that target means consuming roughly 130 to 190 grams of protein every single day.
130 to 190 grams. I have to push back hard here. I've tried to track my macros before. Getting 150 grams of protein a day sounds like a sheer, insurmountable volume of food. It sounds like a miserable full-time job of just endlessly chewing dry chicken breasts and chugging chalky protein shakes.
It's a lot, yeah.
How is a normal person with a job, kids, and a life supposed to manage this without turning their entire existence into a giant, depressing spreadsheet?
It is a very fair, very common reaction. If you just look at the raw mathematics of calculators and targets, it is incredibly overwhelming. And you're right, no one wants to live out of a spreadsheet, which is why the source text makes a brilliant pivot here. It anticipates this exact frustration.
Here's where it gets really interesting because the text shifts from the rigid math of caloric calculators to the practical behavioral psychology of eating. It gives us ways to actually live this out. It teaches us how to hack the deficit.
Yes, moving from clinical calculation to actionable lifestyle strategy. The truth is, while tracking every single calorie and macro in an app is highly educational for a few weeks, it forces you to learn what's actually in your food. For many people, long-term tracking causes immense psychological stress.
Oh, absolutely. It ruins dinner parties.
It does. It causes rigidity, anxiety in social situations, and can even trigger disordered eating patterns.
So how do we create what the text calls an invisible deficit? How do we hit these massive protein targets and lower our calories naturally without a calculator?
The text outlines several key, high-impact behavioral strategies. The first answers your protein dilemma directly. Prioritize protein at every single meal, starting with an anchor at breakfast.
An anchor, like front-loading the goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't try to casually eat throughout the day and then realize at 7 p.m. you need to eat 100 grams of protein at dinner. It's miserable. If you ensure a significant dense protein source like 4 eggs, Greek yogurt, tofu, or lean meat is the centerpiece of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you naturally hit the target.
Without having to cram it all in at once.
Right. And crucially, that high-protein breakfast guarantees GLP-1 release, providing intense satiety that carries you effortlessly to lunch.
That makes total sense. Break the massive goal into 3 manageable chunks. What's the next behavioral hack? Because I still need to lower my total calories without starving.
Increasing vegetable volume to leverage mechanical satiety.
Mechanical satiety. Okay, we talked about hormonal satiety. What is mechanical satiety?
It relies on the actual physical hardware of your gastrointestinal tract. Vegetables like broccoli, spinach, zucchini have massive physical weight and water volume, but an incredibly tiny caloric footprint.
Right. Mostly water and fiber.
Yes. When you eat a huge voluminous salad or a massive portion of steamed vegetables, the physical bulk of that food literally stretches the muscular walls of your stomach.
And there are actual sensors in the stomach wall, right?
Yes, they are called mechanoreceptors or stretch receptors. When the stomach wall expands, these receptors fire a signal up the vagus nerve directly to the brain, saying the organ is physically at maximum capacity, terminate the drive to eat immediately.
Wow.
You are essentially hacking your stomach's physical hardware. You feel gorgeously stuffed, but because the calories in the vegetables are so low, your overall energy intake remains in a strict deficit.
That is brilliant. It's a biological illusion. You aren't starving, you're physically full, but the calorie math works in your favor. And this ties directly into the next strategy, reducing the caloric density of your normal plates.
Exactly. A huge mistake people make is thinking a diet requires radically reinventing everything they eat or buying bizarre, expensive diet foods. You don't need to do that. You just change the ratios on your plate.
Give me an example of changing the ratios.
If your normal Tuesday night dinner is a huge amount of pasta coated in olive oil with a tiny bit of chicken and no vegetables, you just invert the geometry.
Invert the geometry.
When you make a large, robust portion of chicken breast, you add a massive side of roasted vegetables to trigger those stretch receptors, and you keep a smaller, fist-sized portion of pasta for the joy and the carbs.
So you still get the pasta.
Yes, you are eating the exact same physical volume of food, perhaps even more, but the caloric density of the entire plate plummets by 400 calories.
It's tweaking your life, not overhauling it. Okay, the next strategy is crucial. And it's where I think a massive amount of people accidentally sabotage their deficits without even realizing it. Eliminating liquid calories.
Oh, this is perhaps the easiest, most frictionless way to remove hundreds of calories from your day without feeling a single ounce of extra hunger.
Why are liquid calories so dangerous for weight loss? Why do they sabotage us so badly?
Because of evolution. For millions of years, the only liquid calories human beings ever consumed was breast milk as infants. We simply did not evolve biological mechanisms to register calories from liquids in our adult brains.
Oh, yeah.
Liquids pass right through the stomach incredibly quickly. They completely bypass those mechanical stretch receptors we just talked about.
So if I drink a 400-calorie caramel frappuccino or like a couple of beers, what happens?
Those 400 calories hit your bloodstream almost instantly. But because there was no mechanical stretching of the stomach and very little digestive effort, your brain's satiety system does not register that you just consumed a massive meal. The brain doesn't send the "I'm full" signal.
Which means I'm still going to be hungry.
Consequently, you will likely still eat the exact same amount of solid food at lunch as if you hadn't consumed those 400 liquid calories at all.
The text calls them ghost calories.
It's the perfect term. They haunt your deficit. Switching entirely to water, black coffee, or herbal tea removes those ghost calories immediately, deepening your deficit with zero impact on your physical hunger.
And speaking of ghost calories, the last behavioral hack is about structuring your meals to stop the endless grazing. The text uses a great Spanish word for it.
Yes, picatio, the grazing. The text points out that there is no magic number of meals you have to eat. Skipping breakfast isn't inherently bad. Eating 6 small meals isn't inherently magic. But a lack of structure almost always leads to picatio.
What exactly counts as picatio?
It's those unremembered tiny snacking sessions. A handful of nuts from your coworker's desk, a cookie in the break room, a piece of cheese while you're cooking dinner, eating your kids' leftover crusts.
Those 100 to 200 calorie hits that you barely even registered chewing.
Exactly. They seem entirely insignificant in the moment. You don't even log them in your mind as a meal. But if you do that 3 times a day, they accumulate rapidly, adding 500 to 600 calories, completely wiping out your carefully planned 300, 500 calorie deficit.
So how do we stop it?
By establishing clear, rigid eating windows, whether that's 3 square meals or 2 large ones or 5 planned meals, you draw a line in the sand. You eradicate the mindless grazing. If it's not mealtime, you don't eat.
You're turning the unstructured chaos of modern eating into a predictable system. Okay, so let's recap where we are. We are eating massive amounts of protein. We are hacking our stomach's stretch receptors with vegetable volume. We are cutting out the liquid ghost calories, and we are stopping the grazing.
Right. That's the nutritional foundation.
By doing this, we are protecting our muscle from the accountant. But the text says if you want to actively optimize your metabolism and truly change your body shape, you have to go a step further. Diet alone isn't enough. You need to send the body a physical demand to keep that muscle.
And this brings us to the most crucial paradigm shift in the entire discussion: the profound difference between weight loss and fat loss.
Let's define that clearly, because people use those terms interchangeably and they absolutely shouldn't be.
They describe 2 entirely different biological realities. Weight loss simply means the gravitational pull on your body has decreased. The number on the scale goes down.
Right.
But, as we've learned, that weight could be transient water, it could be bone density, it could be the contents of your intestines, or, tragically, it could be your calorie-burning muscle mass. Fat loss, however, is the specific, targeted reduction of your adipose tissue while fiercely maintaining or even growing your muscle mass.
And what is the key to ensuring we get fat loss instead of just generic weight loss?
Strength training, lifting weights, or doing heavy, challenging resistance exercises.
Explain the mechanism there. Why does lifting heavy things matter so much in a caloric deficit?
It comes down to a process called mechanotransduction. When you lift a heavy weight, you place mechanical tension on the muscle fibers. The cells sense this extreme tension and send an emergency signal to the brain saying, this muscle tissue is actively required for survival against intense physical resistance in our environment.
Oh, I see.
It is the ultimate veto power over the anxious accountant. The brain hears that signal and decrees, under no circumstances should you consume this muscle for energy. We need it to lift these heavy objects.
So lifting weights physically blocks the body from burning muscle. But where does cardio fit into this? Because for decades, the absolute gold standard advice for losing weight was to spend an hour a day sweating on the treadmill or the elliptical.
The source text aggressively demotes cardio to a supporting role, and modern science agrees. Cardio is absolutely phenomenal for your cardiovascular health, your mitochondrial function, and it can add a slight caloric burn to deepen your deficit.
Right.
But it is not the main character of fat loss.
Why not? Doesn't running burn more calories than lifting weights?
In the exact moment you are doing it, yes. But cardio does not place enough mechanical tension on the muscles to send that powerful preservation signal. If you just do cardio in a massive deficit, your body will burn both fat and muscle to get smaller and lighter, making you a more efficient runner, but lowering your basal metabolic rate. Strength training is the protagonist because it protects the metabolic engine.
Okay, this leads directly to a concept in the text that is genuinely exciting. It's what everyone secretly wants: body recomposition.
Recomposition corporal. It is often considered the holy grail of fitness.
It's the idea of losing fat and gaining muscle at the exact same time. Now, for years, the standard gym bro dogma I heard was that this was biologically impossible. They said you have to eat in a massive surplus to build muscle bulking and eat in a deficit to lose fat cutting, and you could never do both unless you were a total novice or taking anabolic steroids.
That was the historical consensus, yes. It was believed to be a thermodynamic impossibility. But recent science, as heavily highlighted in the source text, shows that body recomposition is possible for a much wider range of people than previously believed.
Really? Like who?
Overweight beginners, people returning from a layoff, and even moderately trained individuals can achieve it if the parameters are perfectly dialed in.
Okay, you have to explain the mechanism here, because it does sound like a thermodynamic paradox. How is it physically possible for the body to build dense new tissue, which requires massive amounts of energy, while you are keeping it in a 500-calorie deficit, which means it has an energy shortage?
It sounds paradoxical, but it showcases how incredibly resourceful the human body is. You have to remember, your body fat is not just dead weight, it is stored potential energy. Hundreds of thousands of calories of potential energy.
Right, fuel in the tank.
Exactly. Under the right conditions, the body will use the massive amount of energy stored in your fat cells to pay the biological energy cost of building new muscle tissue.
Okay, I want to try an analogy here to see if I'm getting this right. It's like trying to build a new extension on your house.
All right, let's hear it.
So you want to build a new room, that's the muscle. But the bank has cut off your credit limit and you have no cash coming in, that's the calorie deficit. Normally, construction starts. However, you can still build the new room, but only if three distinct things happen.
Okay, what are the three things?
First, the contractor actually has to show up and demand the work be done, that is the mechanical tension of lifting heavy weights. Second, the truck has to deliver the actual physical bricks to build the walls, that is the high dietary protein we just talked about.
I like where this is going.
And third, to pay for the contractor's labor, since you have no cash, you have to go into the backyard and burn the giant pile of old, unwanted firewood you've been hoarding, which is the body fat to generate the fuel to fund the project.
That is a phenomenal analogy. It perfectly captures the mechanism. The contractor, the workout, provides the stimulus. The bricks, the protein, provide the structural raw material. And the firewood, the fat, provides the required energy. The body simply transfers the funds from the dormant storage tissue to the active working tissue.
That is incredibly empowering, but there's a major catch with body recomposition, right? The text warns us about the psychological toll it takes.
Yes, it requires immense, almost stoic patience. Because you are simultaneously losing fat, which lowers your overall weight, and gaining dense muscle, which increases your weight, the absolute number on the bathroom scale will move excruciatingly slowly.
Which is so frustrating.
Very. In many cases, it might not move a single millimeter for weeks or months.
Which would drive a normal person absolutely insane if they are waking up and weighing themselves every single morning.
Exactly. They will think the diet is failing. But the visual results in the mirror, the way their clothes fit, and the underlying metabolic health of their body will be vastly, vastly superior to someone who just starved themselves, did cardio, and lost 10 kilos of both fat and muscle.
Which brings us perfectly to the psychological trap that destroys so many journeys. Because if you are actively recomposing your body, burning off light, fluffy fat, and building dense, heavy muscle, you are going to step on your bathroom scale and it is going to lie right to your face.
Sickly, yeah.
The scale becomes not just useless, but actively destructive to your mental health.
It is the single instrument with the most power to derail a successful, biologically perfect process.
The text brilliantly deconstructs exactly what the scale is actually measuring. And it's shockingly not just fat.
Not at all. People treat the scale as a fat measuring device. It is not. The scale measures absolute total mass subjected to gravity in that precise second in time.
Everything in your body.
Everything. It measures your bone density, your organs, your skin, the physical weight of the food currently sitting in your digestive tract, and most volatile and confusing of all, it measures water.
The water fluctuations blew my mind. The text lists all these completely normal, daily biological events that cause the scale to jump wildly, and none of them have absolutely anything to do with gaining fat. Walk us through these, starting with sodium.
Let's say you eat a meal high in salt on a Friday night, like sushi with soy sauce or a restaurant meal. The body must maintain a strict osmotic balance in your cells. To dilute that sodium, the body aggressively retains water. You can wake up Saturday morning 1 to 2 kilos heavier, purely from water retention.
2 kilos, that's over 4 pounds, just water.
Just water. Second, starting a new strength training routine. When you lift weights properly, you create microscopic tears in the muscle fibers. The body responds with localized inflammation to heal and rebuild them.
And inflammation causes swelling.
Exactly. Inflammation inherently traps water at the site of the repair. This can easily add 0.5 to 1 kilo on the scale the day after a hard leg workout.
That is so profoundly unfair. You go to the gym, work out hard, do exactly what you're supposed to do to recompose your body, and the scale punishes you by going up the next day.
It feels like a punishment if you don't understand the biology. It's actually a sign of healing. Third, carbohydrates. We mentioned glycogen earlier. If you eat a higher carb meal after a few days of eating low carb, your body replenishes those glycogen stores.
And the sponge fills back up.
Right. And remember, for every gram of glycogen, it pulls 3 to 4 grams of water into the muscle. The scale shoots up 1 to 2 kilos. Again, just energy stores and hydration, zero fat gained.
And for women, the hormonal fluctuations are even more massive.
Incredibly massive. During the premenstrual phase, or luteal phase, sweeping shifts in estrogen and progesterone alters fluid dynamics. Women can experience up to 3 kilos of water retention.
3 kilos? That's nearly 7 pounds of pure hormonal water weight.
And finally, the most basic, undeniable bodily function, digestion. If you simply haven't used the bathroom in 24 hours, the actual physical mass of digesting food and waste sitting in your intestines can weigh anywhere from 0.5 to 2 kilos.
So let's combine these. Let's say I eat a salty, carb-heavy pizza on Friday night. I do a heavy squat workout on Saturday morning. I'm a woman in my premenstrual phase, and I haven't gone to the bathroom. The scale could conceivably tell me I gained 4 or 5 kilos overnight.
Easily. Very easily.
And a person who doesn't understand this deep biology will look at that number, absolutely despair, cry, and probably quit the entire process right there, thinking they ruined a month of progress in one night.
Or worse, they will react with terror and restrict compulsively the next day. They'll drop their calories to 800, restarting the entire catastrophic binge-restrict-starvation cycle we talked about at the beginning. This is why the source text provides incredibly strict, non-negotiable rules for using the scale.
What are the rules to protect our sanity?
If you insist on using it, you must use it under controlled, scientific conditions. Weigh yourself at the exact same time of day, ideally first thing in the morning, completely fasted, and immediately after using the bathroom.
Right. Keep the variables the same.
But more importantly, you must completely ignore the daily number. You must only track the multi-week rolling average trend.
But the trend line is the only truth.
Yes. There are apps that calculate a rolling average, smoothing out the daily spikes. But the text strongly advises relying on superior metrics in parallel. Taking progress photos in the exact same lighting every 2 weeks, noting how a specific pair of tight pants fits around the waist, or taking physical tape measurements of your waist, hips, and arms.
And if the scale just causes too much anxiety, if that daily number ruins your mood for the entire day.
The clinical advice is blunt, ditch it entirely. Put it in the closet. Weigh yourself once a week or once a fortnight, or only at the doctor's office. As the text profoundly states, information that causes you to make worse behavioral decisions is not useful information, even if it feels objective.
Okay, so we've conquered the psychological terror of the scale. But eventually, even if we do everything perfectly, the 500-calorie deficit, the high protein, the heavy lifting, the fat loss will slow down. We hit the dreaded plateau. The scale and the tape measure both stop moving.
Yes, the plateau is a biological inevitability. And this is where we return to metabolic adaptation.
The accountant has finally caught on to our 500-calorie deficit.
Precisely. Even with a moderate, responsible deficit, if you maintain it for several months, your body will eventually adapt to match your new lower intake. You weigh less, so you burn less. Your subconscious movement drops.
So you stop burning as much, just existing.
Right. You hit a plateau because your daily energy expenditure has dropped to exactly equal your daily intake. You are no longer in a deficit, even though you are eating the exact same amount of food that used to cause consistent weight loss.
So what do we do when this happens? Do we cut calories even lower? Do we drop to 1,200 and starve ourselves to force the issue?
No, because that immediately triggers the catastrophic starvation response and muscle loss we covered in Section 1. Instead, the text offers advanced strategic tactics to break the plateau. The most powerful one is called a diet break.
Wait, a diet break? You're telling me the scientific solution to a weight loss plateau is to literally stop dieting and eat more food. That goes against everything we are ever taught. How does flooding the system with calories not just instantly turn into fat?
It sounds totally counterintuitive, but it is grounded in brilliant endocrinology. You intentionally spend 1 to 2 weeks eating at your new maintenance calories. You're not binging, you're not eating in a massive surplus, but you are bringing your calories exactly up to what you burn.
What does that actually do to the biology?
It acts as a profound hormonal reset. It sends a loud, clear signal to the hypothalamus that the famine is officially over. Because you're eating more, leptin levels rise back up to normal levels.
And the hunger hormone.
The screaming ghrelin levels drop down, and your metabolic rate recovers slightly as the body turns the thermostat back up. It is not giving up on your goal. It is a highly calculated, strategic biological retreat to win the overall war.
Oh, I like that. A strategic retreat.
When you return to the moderate deficit a week or two later, the body responds again because the hormonal emergency has been cleared.
That's fascinating. You are literally tricking the accountant into relaxing. What else can we do during a plateau besides eating more?
You focus heavily on increasing your NEAT.
Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. We touched on this earlier. The spontaneous movement.
Yes, remember, because your brain subconsciously paralyzed your desire to fidget and pace to save energy, you have to consciously, deliberately force it back up.
So it's fighting your own neurology.
Exactly. The brain says, sit still, you must say no. Make a deliberate, structured effort to hit a daily step goal, say 10,000 steps. Take the stairs every single time. Get a standing desk and stand while working. Pace the room while on phone calls.
So just move more outside the gym.
Right. It artificially counters the body's subtle neurological energy-saving mechanisms, pushing your daily expenditure back up without the intense fatigue of adding an hour of heavy cardio.
And I imagine keeping protein high is completely non-negotiable here to protect the muscle while the metabolism figured itself out.
Absolutely non-negotiable. And the final rule for plateaus is to periodize your weight loss. Avoid infinite deficits. The text highly recommends dieting in distinct phases, perhaps 8 to 16 weeks of a moderate deficit, followed by a purposeful phase of maintenance to reset. The body simply needs room to breathe and normalize its hormonal signals.
Which brings us perfectly into the psychological wrap-up of everything we've learned today. Implementing these diet breaks, ignoring the daily water fluctuations on the scale, eating huge plates of vegetables instead of tiny plates of pasta, resisting the urge to drop to 1,200 calories out of panic. All of this requires a massive foundational psychological shift.
It really does. The whole new mindset.
We have to stop viewing body change as a frantic 30-day sprint and start viewing it as a lifelong marathon.
And the text delivers a very uncomfortable truth here. A truth that the billion-dollar diet industry completely ignores because it doesn't sell books.
What's that?
The absolute best diet in the world is simply the one you can actually stick to for years.
Not the most optimal one.
No. Adherence is the only metric that dictates long-term success. A biologically perfect, lab-tested, scientifically optimized 12-week protocol that strips fat perfectly but makes you utterly miserable, ruins your social life, and that you inevitably abandon in week 13 is a total failure.
Because the weight will just come back.
Exactly. Conversely, a suboptimal diet, one that maybe has a slightly smaller deficit, allows for more treats, isn't perfectly timed around your workouts, but that you can happily, effortlessly adhere to for 2 solid years, will vastly outperform the perfect diet every single time.
It's about compliance. If you can't comply with the rules, the underlying science of the rules doesn't matter.
Exactly. You have to ask yourself crucial, honest lifestyle questions before starting any protocol. Do you actually enjoy the food you are eating? Can you socialize with your friends on a Friday night without bringing your own Tupperware? Can you go to a restaurant without feeling paralyzing anxiety that you ruined everything?
Ruined everything. That phrase right there is the core of the issue for so many people. The text calls it the binary mindset, the all-or-nothing trap.
It is arguably the most destructive psychological pattern in the entire realm of health and fitness.
Describe how this trap works in the real world, because I know I've fallen into it.
It's the mindset of absolute perfectionism. Let's say it's Wednesday. You've been hitting your protein, staying in your 500-calorie deficit. Then at lunch, a coworker brings in a birthday cake. You have a slice. You weren't supposed to.
So what happens?
The all-or-nothing brain immediately says, I broke my diet. The day is completely ruined. The streak is broken. Therefore, I might as well order a massive pizza for dinner, binge through the entire weekend because this week is a wash, and I'll try to be perfectly clean again on Monday.
It's treating a tiny speed bump like a total fiery car crash.
Exactly. It's framing the diet as a fragile glass sculpture. One tiny crack, one deviation, and the whole thing is shattered beyond repair. But the text insists we must completely reframe this. Eating is not a binary state. You are never on a diet or off a diet. Eating is a continuous, uninterrupted, lifelong process.
So how do we view that slice of office cake through a healthy lens?
A meal outside the plan is not a moral failure. It is not the end of the streak. It is simply an independent, isolated event in a long timeline. It happened, you enjoyed it, it's over.
So just move on.
Right. The very next meal dinner, that same Wednesday night, is a fresh, immediate opportunity to return to your baseline habits of high protein and vegetables. The 300 calories of cake didn't ruin the week. The 4,000 calories of weekend binging because you thought the week was ruined is what actually causes the biological damage.
Wow. So what does this all mean? It means that sheer patience, not your biology, not your genetics, not your lack of moral willpower, is the single biggest hurdle to transforming your body.
Impatience is the real enemy.
Losing 15 or 20 kilos over the course of a year, methodically and slowly, doesn't make for a sexy magazine cover. It won't get a million views on TikTok, but it is the one and only method that honors your biology, protects your metabolism, and lasts forever.
It is the quiet, consistent, lifelong triumph of science over marketing.
Wow. Let's recap this massive journey for our listener because we've covered so much deep physiological ground today. We started by looking at the terrifying biological trap of the 1,200-calorie crash diet.
Right, how they trigger a primal, evolutionary starvation response, spiking the hunger hormone Ghrelin for years, plummeting leptin, and cannibalizing your metabolic engine, your precious muscle.
And we countered that by learning the mathematical power of the 300 to 500 calorie deficit, the biological sweet spot that allows for steady, consistent fat oxidation without sounding the evolutionary alarms in the brain.
We took a deep dive into the absolute magic of protein, too. The metabolic shield that triggers GLP-1 to keep you full burns 30% of its own calories just through the complex chemistry of digestion and provides the literal bricks to protect your muscle tissue.
And we discussed hacking the deficit by stretching our stomach mechanoreceptors with vegetable volume and cutting out the evolutionary loophole of liquid ghost calories.
We differentiated between simply losing random weight and actually losing adipose tissue, highlighting how the mechanical tension of strength training forces the body to preserve muscle, making body recomposition possible.
And finally, we found mental freedom by escaping the tyranny of the bathroom scale's daily water fluctuations, embracing the strategy of diet breaks, and ditching that toxic binge-inducing all-or-nothing mindset.
It is a complete and total paradigm shift in how we interact with ourselves.
It really is. As we wrap up our deep dive today, what is the final provocative takeaway we should be leaving the listeners with?
If we connect all this biology to the bigger picture of our society, we live in a modern world that promises instant software updates, ultra-fast broadband, and next-day delivery for every single thing we desire. We have been conditioned to expect our bodies to respond with that exact same instantaneous compliance. But our bodies are not smartphones. They are still operating on hardware designed by millions of years of brutal evolution. Hardware built specifically to survive harsh famines, not to look shredded in a swimsuit in 30 days for a vacation. So the thought to ponder is this. What if we stopped treating our biology like a malfunctioning, stubborn machine that needs to be forcefully starved and hacked, and started treating it like a highly intelligent, ancient partner that simply needs the right instructions and the patience to execute them?
A highly intelligent partner. Treat your biology with respect, and it will respond. Absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone for joining us on this deep dive. Take these tools, apply that mental filter to the marketing noise, respect your metabolic accountant, and use this knowledge to completely change your relationship with food, the scale, and your own body. We'll catch you on the next one.